marketers. Deborah Eckerling here.
And I'm Keith Smith, and we host the MPN Meta Marketing Show, which is not just another marketing podcast, but the marketing podcast about all the other marketing podcasts.
Podcasts are booming, right? We love them, and people actually listen. They don't scroll, they don't swipe. Well, except maybe during the ad breaks.
But here's the secret. With the Marketing Podcast Network, your ads don't make people hit skip. We put your brand on shows that people actually want to hear.
That's right. We match your message with podcasts that make marketing nerds like us perk up and take notes. Or at least nod knowingly, pretending they understand.
And don't worry, because we'll deliver your ad naturally. People might even think that we love your brand personally, which of course we totally do, unless it's a veggie smoothie, then maybe not.
If you want your brand heard without making listeners roll their eyes,
head to marketingpodcasts.net and catch marketing fans at work, rest, and play. Seriously, your audience is already listening. Make sure they hear your brand and not our awkward jokes.
Join the conversation, because good ads shouldn't just be tolerated, they should be enjoyed.
Yes!
Hey, have you heard about Podcast On? This is a global podcast charity event where hosts dedicate one episode to a nonprofit they care about and release it together the same week. No fundraising, no fees, just powerful storytelling for good. Podcast On 2026 runs March 14th to March 20th. Join thousands of podcasters worldwide and use your voice for impact. It's free, it's simple, and it starts at podcaston.org.
The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of Podcast On.
Welcome to Your Radiant Spirit, the podcast where art, energy, and inspiration come alive. Hosted by award-winning intuitive painter Heather Eck, synesthetic artist, chakra expert, and spiritual guide. This show invites you to explore the transformative power of color, creativity, and spiritual healing. Heather's unique gift of seeing color through energy fuels her stunning spirit portraits and chakra-aligned artworks, designed to bring healing and alignment to your life. Whether you're curious about the magic of chakras, looking to unlock your creative potential, or eager to connect with your radiant spirit, you're in the right place. Your radiant spirit is calling. Let's dive in.
Okay, welcome back, my friends, to Your Radiant Spirit. I'm so happy to have my guest, Marcelletta Miles, with me today. Marci is a third-generation healer who had to heal herself before she could truly help others. After facing life-threatening illness, profound loss, and a transformative divorce, she realized her body was holding unprocessed pain. Turning to holistic practices like shamanism, Reiki, and end-of-life doula work, she reclaimed her voice and stepped into her feminine power. Now she helps high-achieving women break free from overgiving and masculine energy, guiding them to reconnect with their intuition, balance their energies, and embrace their worth. Through her holistic healing practice, Marci empowers women to stop surviving and start living fully with joy, balance, and purpose. Marci is a dear friend of mine, and I'm thrilled to be able to bring her story to you. Marci, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I think it'd be fun to kind of talk about how we met initially, because we've known each other for a while, but our listeners don't know this story. So I remember meeting you when I did my coaching certification, and it was probably in 2015, 2016.
Yeah. Gosh, that feels like yesterday, but when we talk about that year, it seems like such a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I was a contributing faculty at that time, but I do remember you coming into class, and I remember your class very well. Beautiful group of souls, and I loved your energy and dedication to the cause of coaching and moving people forward on their journeys as well. And so, yeah, that's when we met.
Yeah. It's funny too, because like, it's almost like spoiler alert, like the coaching thing didn't work out for me.
Well, the thing is that we have a toolbox that is filled with many tools. And even though because the same with me, I'm not doing just, coaching which I thought I would be doing, nothing but coaching going forward. It is still part of my work that I do. And I
Hmm.
imagine that is part of your work as well. So,
It is. Yeah,
yeah.
it is. But that's so funny. So it's been almost 10 years. So tell us about how your path led you from nursing to
Mhm.
coaching to where you are today.
So, I have been a nurse for over 30 years. And when I say that, I'm like, Marcy, are you that old? But, so I've been a nurse for over 30 years. And, at some point, someone had approached me about coaching, and I really didn't know what that was. So I did some research, and I was in leadership for 18 of those 30 years. And so I was like, oh, this is me. I said, I can get a certification in this because this is something that I have been doing for a long time. Um, and so I started down that path, and I actually went through the academy in 2014, like a year or two before I actually met you. And it was a life-changing experience. And from that point forward, it was for me, it was all about self-care and self-love, being a nurse and really understanding how, we as nurses really don't take care of ourselves. We're so busy taking care of other people. And it was interesting because I was diagnosed with the autoimmune disease that same year. And my grandmother had died that same year. I got the diagnosis and her death around the same time.
Mm,
Um, and so it just kind of morphed into something. And my sister had been talking about, I want us to do something with holistic healing. And she wanted to be a naturopathic, a naturopathic physician. And at the time, I was so ingrained into Western medicine that I was like, I don't know what this is. Holistic? No, I'm not really sure. But I was like, I wanted to support her because she was also suffering from a different autoimmune disorder. And she was really trying to go down the natural path. She had a physician, but she was really trying to incorporate, holistic type of approaches. And interestingly enough, her journey ended in 2017 when she passed, and I really wanted to honor her request of us doing something together. And so I felt like when I started back in 2014, I had a good foundation of what self care, was from a perspective of probably Western medicine, I would say.
mhm,
And after she passed, I I was like, there has to be more to life than this. This just cannot be it. This can't be, all. And I started down the path of Reiki. I got introduced to shamanism. I I remember telling people that I'm not new to death. I knew all of my great grandparents and all of my grandparents. And so um, I ended up venturing down the path of being an end of life doula because I was, encouraging people to have some tough conversations. And that was really all that I knew about it at the time until I decided to dive deeper. And so I would say from the mind and the body, I felt like I was doing everything correct. Um, and I was hanging my hat out to be this, mind, body, spirit kind of person. But what I didn't recognize was that I really hadn't connected the mind, body, and spirit together, if that makes sense.
mhm,
And so, um, I tell everybody I was married to a Baptist minister for 27 years. And even though we loved each other, we were just not meant to be married. That marriage was not the marriage that I had envisioned for myself. And what I realized that I was doing was I was holding a lot of unprocessed emotions that even though I call myself taking care of my mind and my body, my spirit just felt like it was depleted. And I was still going to church every Sunday, praying, but I just didn't have the real true connection with God. And what was interesting is that going through the shamanic, um, going through that shamanic practice and that coursework, I realized that I wasn't processing my emotions, and the emotions was what was causing me to really get sick. So it
Mm,
started with the sarcoids, and then I was diagnosed with AFib in 2021, and in 2022 I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was like, okay, Marcy, there's something about this journey that you're not doing right. Um,
mm,
and you scratching the surface, but you're not digging deep. And so I sat with it, and I was like, I have really been depriving myself of who I really am, because I thought I knew myself. Um, if you would have asked any of my team members, yeah, Marcy, she knows herself, she knows who she is. But what I realized was that I really did not. And
mm,
and it wasn't until I had to have that very hard conversation with my husband about me loving him, but this marriage was just not meant to be. And it was like once I finally opened up and said those words, something just opened up on the inside. And I feel like I was finally able to release all of the emotional baggage that I had been carrying, not only throughout the marriage, but I also realized that it was a result of my childhood and how I was brought up. And, I tell everybody I wasn't a tomboy, but my dad had me outside helping him change engines and rebuild engines and transmissions and craziness. And my sister was the one who was in the house playing with the dolls. And I was like, okay, so after, saying it out loud that I wanted a divorce, I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to get back to who I was created to be and how I'm supposed to show up, tap into my feminine energy and really find
mhm,
balance in the masculine and feminine. Being in leadership, I realized that a lot of my energy in the workplace, it was probably 80%, 70 to 80% masculine and maybe 20, percent to 30% feminine.
mm,
Um, and then on some days it was just more masculine and I didn't even know where the feminine side showed up. But it was like, okay, I'm supposed to be tapping into my feminine side. I was, born a woman, and we really listen to our gut. And when we're in the workplace, I find that we listen to our heads. It's all about what's in the mind, the logic, and that's very masculine energy. And so I had to reconnect with my body in a way that I had never um, thought about and even considered or even knew about doing, from birth up until a couple of years ago. And so that has led me down the path of really helping other um, powerful women in the workforce. In those leadership and management positions, really helping them connect with their feminine side, because when you're in roles such as a CEO or VP or whatever the case may be, the majority of the people that are in that suite around you are men. And you end up really trying to meet their energy instead of really kind of balancing out that masculine and feminine. And so that has led me to my path today. And I love working with women who are standing in their righteousness, as I say it, that they believe that this is who they are until they sit down and talk with me and realize this is not who I am in the workplace. I might be this way,
mm.
whatever, but this is not who I am. And how can I find my feminine power and it be just as impactful and meaningful, probably even more meaningful in the workplace than this masculine energy that I've been holding on to.
Oh my gosh. Marcy, thank you for sharing all of that. That because your story is so, it's like what's it called? The hero's journey.
Yes.
It really is. And you've gone through so much transformation over the last couple of years, even since I've known you.
Hmm.
Um, but it sounds like you have done a lot of work in both the masculine and the feminine. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means, how that shows up for us, and how you work with women to help them shift out of the masculine into more of the feminine?
Well, it's interesting because I just had a client that I was working with last week, and she was talking about so the majority of her staff are women, and what's interesting, it kind of mirrored very much my professional path when I was in nursing. So, I worked with a team of women, team of nurses. And so for her, these aren't just nurses. These are like front office staff. These are, sonographers, middle management kind of people. And, and so she is a go-getter. She set a very high, tight timeline for her to make some accomplishments in this particular organization, and it was really from a masculine perspective. And so the energy of men, they come in and they just like to tell me what to do, I get it done, and then I move on to the next thing. When you come into an organization from a feminine perspective, and you should, and don't get me wrong, because men have both masculine and feminine energies as well,
Right.
um, but they really do operate in their masculinity. Women tend to try to emulate, oh, I'm going to go in, I'm going to change this culture, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, we're going to move it forward, and then I'm out. She gave herself this 3-year timeline. But what was interesting is that um, there was a disconnect between her and the staff.
Mm.
And the particular energy that was she was exemplifying was that masculine energy. She came in talking from a place of her head, very logical. And people typically do appreciate logic, but when you're new
Hmm.
coming in, you have to connect. And that is one of the things that I feel like um, she really didn't feel like that was something that she needed to do. She just needed to tell people what to do, and then they do it. But you have to build a sense of trust. You have to build that foundation. And being a woman, to me, being a woman, it's easier to do that if you take the time to listen instead of just telling people what it is they need to do. And so when you think about masculine and feminine, I think of coming in with a compassionate um, a compassionate spirit about yourself. Like
Mm.
you know, it's not just caring about the people that you serve from the patients, but it's also about caring for the staff. And that was one of the main things that I always tried to put at the forefront of anything that I did when I was in corporate was how can I, care for the staff um, from a place of love, care, concern. And a lot of my nurses were the primary breadwinners of their homes. And when you think about that, and so was I. So when you think about that, you not only have that masculine energy at work, but you bring it home. And I
Hmm.
remember later in my career, I was like, I just want to come home and not have to make any decisions. Can you just step up and make some decisions for me? I just want to be. I don't want to have to decide. I don't want to have, and that was even when it came down to cooking dinner. I mean, I don't mind going in the kitchen and cooking, but just tell me what you want. I don't want to have to figure out what you want.
Yeah.
Just tell me. And so when I think of feminine energy, it is innately that we are born where we're supposed to listen to our gut, our solar plexus. That is where um, the first decisions are truly made. You know that when you walk into a situation, you kind of have a little ping, I think, in your gut. I call it a ping. And I was like, something about this is not right. But most people really try to look at the situation and apply some logic to it, and they start talking from their head instead of really listening to their gut. And that's where we make the mistake. And I help women take a step back. I help them kind of recenter, refocus, figure out how to really truly connect with their bodies. What is their body telling them? Not the head, but what is their body telling them that they should really be listening to? um, because that's who we are. That's how God made us. And
Hmm.
so from the masculine perspective, a lot of people say or think that it's how you dress, how you walk. But no, it's really, what you have going on in your head and your connection with the mind and body. Um, and really being able to move forward in that perspective. I will also say that for me, I was dressing in black. I also didn't want to be seen. And very seldom did I ever wear. I probably can count the time on two fingers that you caught me wearing a skirt to work. I mean, I was always in pants. Um, and I was like, huh, what is that about? Now I would put church on, I would put a, dress on Sundays, but, um, to work, very seldom did you ever see me in a dress or in a skirt. And I was like, I don't know what that's about, but let me kind of, sit with that, because when clothes also makes you feel feminine. And so I work with women to also think about how they're dressing and, you know, um, how they can bring that feminine side forward in how they speak, in how they dress, and be able to tell the difference in how they feel.
Mm.
Because a lot of times we kind of bypass what we're feeling. We just kind of, move forward and keep it moving and think that it's nothing. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of us walk around with illnesses for so long, because we're not really connecting that the body is giving us signals. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I will say that when I was diagnosed with AFib, I probably walked around a long time with high blood pressure and didn't even know it. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, didn't know it at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would have kind of a slight headache, and then I said, oh, it must be some pollen or something in the air, and I just take something and just keep it moving. But I realized that, okay, Marcy, that was not pollen. That was
Mm-hmm.
that was high
Your
blood
body
pressure.
was talking to you.
Yeah, my body was telling me, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
need some help. You're not listening to me. And so really helping women connect with their bodies more. Um, and so yeah, I'm not even sure if I answered your question,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I think you did. That's super helpful. I think you brought up a lot of things that are really interesting. The ways that we, like you said, as women, we just keep it moving, right? Like we've got so much going on. You talked about not wanting to have to make a decision about dinner. Women carry the bulk of the mental load in work, life, home, kids, marriage, family, everything, I think myself included, like I'm always amazed at the amount of crap that I can get done in a single day because I just keep it moving, right? It's like move the laundry from the washer to the dryer while you go and just quickly clean the toilet and then go and pop over here, do a painting and then go. Like we just keep it we literally carry the mental load and that starts to weigh on us and then our bodies start screaming because we're being told constantly to just keep going and to not stop and to not slow down. And so it sounds like you were experiencing all of these signs and symbols, and God was talking to you, your body was talking to you, your spirit was talking to you, and you were just kind of like, I don't have time to listen to any of this. I got to keep it moving.
Mhm.
But you talked about the feminine and helping women sit in their femininity more. I'd love to understand a bit more about the self-care component of that, because it seems like you're helping women understand almost like the divine feminine, how to allow that to lead. Okay, so tell us about how you work with self-care in the context of shifting from the masculine to the feminine.
Well, so what's interesting is, I like I said, I started down that whole self-care path back in 2014 when I was going through the academy, the coaching academy, and I was, thinking, oh yeah, I can help my nurses with self-care. When I sat down and talked with people about self-care, the majority of the nurses talked about, oh yeah, I'm going to get my hair done, or oh, I, got to go get my nails and my feet done. And I was like, is that what they think self-care really is? I was
I think a
like,
lot of us think that that's like quote
yeah. And
self-care.
I
Yeah.
tell people, I said, that is just weekly routine hygiene. That's what
That's not
like,
what we're talking about here.
this is not what we're talking about. I was like, no, self-care is supposed to really energize your mind, body, and your spirit. It's just not supposed to make you look good on the outside. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes a nice pedicure and manicure can be self-care, but I have gone into many um nail salons, and people are getting their feet done, but they're on the phone or they're texting. And so they're not sitting in the moment. And after I went through the academy, I took a mindfulness course at Duke Integrated Medicine. And I was like, this is self care. I was like, mindfulness helps you get still and focus on what you have going on right there in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of people, what I'm finding is that if they don't want to sit still and be present in that moment, there's something that they're running from. Whether they're running from themselves or whatever the situation is. And yes, I understand that the sit in meditation is not something that everybody can just, start out of the gate doing. But mindfulness, I like to have people to start with the seven mindfulness or the nine attitudes of mindfulness, and really think about patience, think about non-striving, non-judging, trust. And when it comes down to trust, it's not necessarily trusting other people, it's trusting your gut. But the thing is that until you can get still and really be present in that moment, because like you said, a lot of women, I mean, yeah, I might be having dinner on the stove, but I'm trying to put some laundry in the washing machine at the same time. And so what we end up doing is just we're just pinging all over the place, and our mind is just constantly going. And until you can get still and be fully present in that moment of what do I have going on right now, not necessarily externally, but in my body. What is my body telling me? Can I just sit still and clear my mind and create a clean slate? And you don't have to sit down and start out of the gate trying to meditate for 40 minutes, but just take a quick minute to just kind of check in. Take in some deep breaths. And we don't breathe deep, we breathe
Mm-hmm.
very, very shallow. um, and so self care can look like just really getting still. It can look like just taking a few minutes while you're in the shower and just doing some deep breathing exercises. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. Um, Real self love and self compassion could be, it should be free. You can splurge and go out on a retreat and do some things. And I did that after my mom and dad passed. I went to a place in Virginia, um, which is it's a lovely place. It's pricey, but it was for me to just get to a place where I was just by myself, quietness, and
Mm-hmm.
be pampered, healthy food, being mindful of the choices that you are making as it relates to your diet. A lot of times we are eating on the go, grabbing something quick to just, maybe, we might hear our stomach growling and we might feel it growling, but how long has it really been growling? Because it's probably been growling for a long time. But we just, but I'm hungry. I don't have time to eat right now. Let me just do this. But the thing is that it's about what we're putting in our bodies. It's about what we're putting into our spirits. It's about also releasing. Journaling is a great place to sit down and really kind of release whatever it is you taking in, either from the day before, if you journal in the morning, or journaling in the evening at night, and just kind of reflect on what's come in that day, and reflect on it, how things made you feel, kind of process some of the emotions that you experienced throughout the day. That is what real self-care, in my opinion. And there are people that may not agree with me, and that's completely fine. I tell everybody self-care is very personal for every individual. For some people, um, it might be, journaling every day. For some people, it might be I've got to get out, I've got to get in the air, I've got to walk, I've got to feel the sun on my skin. It can be whatever because it's very individualized. Um, but the thing is that it's something that we should do daily. Self care is not something that we need to be holding on and wait until the end of the week.
Mm.
It's something that we need to be doing daily. So your self care practice daily may be something small. It could be um, 15, 30 minutes of meditation. It could be maybe 15, minutes or 30 minutes of journaling. um, it could be getting out, exercise, and walking daily because that makes your body feel good. It could be, making sure that you are eating healthy choices, making healthy choices of what you want to eat. It could be reading. A lot of women that I talk to say, "Oh yeah, I used to love to read all the time, but I just don't get the chance to do that." Or I used to crochet, but I don't get the chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever gives you a sense of peace, and relaxation, and just kind of helps you release all of the stress, that you carry throughout the day. Self care is very important and it should be done daily.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's one of the things that I talk about in some of my art workshops too. A lot of people come in, if it's an evening class, and they rush in from their day and they are just like over, they've just come out of a traffic jam. They're worried about being late for the class and they finally sit down and I'm like, okay, we're going to take a second. We're going to breathe together. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to just shake off that, whatever you came in with, and then we're going to paint or journal or draw or write or whatever it is. But doing anything with your hands for like 15, 20 minutes instantly lowers your cortisol and
Yes.
instantly relaxes the body. And
Mm-hmm.
I think you're exactly right. Whether it's crochet, whether you're cooking something, preparing a meal for yourself, whether it's, journaling or that act of just sitting and
Mm-hmm.
doing something creative, even if people say they're not creative, it helps to ease the body into a different state. So that's so important. So what do you say to somebody? Because I feel, and you knew me at this time too, working in corporate, probably a working mom, balancing all the things of the day, right? Like we don't have time. So what do you say to somebody, that high achieving woman who's like, Marcy, I know I need to take better care of myself, but I don't have time. What do you encourage us to start doing?
The easiest thing to start doing in order to actually feel better is I introduce people to mindfulness. The seven attitudes of mindfulness. I don't necessarily have women that just, start out of the gate with trying to meditate because most people fight it.
Hmm.
But I do introduce them to the seven attitudes of mindfulness. And then actually, I keep seven, but it's actually nine. And we talk about which of those attitudes have been rising to the forefront. So sometimes it's trust, a lot of times it's patience. More often than not is non-striving, because everybody is trying to get somewhere quick. And I love really talking about non-striving because what I find is I think the best way to explain non-striving is when we are, how when we're teaching our kids shapes, and I don't know what that little toy is called, but you have all these little shapes and you have to put them in the little places that
Like
they.
the matching, yeah.
Mhm. And have you ever seen, kids where they're trying to put the circle in the triangle and it won't go, but they still keep trying?
Yeah,
And I was like, that is an example of, striving when we are trying to force or make something happen, and we keep getting pushback or we keep struggling with it because it's just not meant to be. But from a masculine perspective, we're gonna make it happen.
right.
From a feminine energy perspective, we allow. And so allowing would be, let me just put the circle here and see, oh, doesn't fit. Oh, well, let's go over here and finally find the circle that and then it fits right. And that is an example of us not trying to force something, but just kind of going with it and just, not getting frustrated with it, because you're right. Those cortisol levels do begin to rise. We get frustrated, and that is where the illnesses begin. And
Uh-huh.
we carry that energy around a lot. And when you think about self care is what is supposed to help us release that energy, and that's why it's supposed to be done on a daily basis. So mindfulness is usually where I start, and I also have them to start with journaling, and then make a commitment. It can be something small, something simple that they can actually start with, but make a commitment to do something from a self-love perspective, every day. Because self-care, I think it's a term that is thrown about around very loosely, in several different fields, and definitely in the healthcare field. But when I dig deeper, it's about how can I love myself, and that is where I feel like I don't get pushback, and I don't get I don't get people coming back at me saying, no, that's not right. What I am upfront in owning is that is not the way we were taught. Our
Mm.
parents have taught us because we watch them, because that's how we learn. We watch and we do when we emulate what we see our parents do. So, my mom, I saw her making the sacrifice of taking care of others around her, and really taking care of herself last. My mom was probably a diabetic for 10 years before she even got a diagnosis. And she was still bearing the burdens of everybody that was coming at her asking her for, X, Y, and Z. And I watched that, and I felt like when I became a mom and a wife, that's what I was supposed to do. I mean, I remember coming in, and you leave the house in the morning, you're still checking off your to-do list, or you're thinking about your to-do list, putting it together in your head of what you have to do when you get to work. And then before you leave, you start putting your to-do list together, what you got to do when you get home.
Yep.
I remember saying, yeah, I come in the door. As I'm coming in the house, I'm stopping by the freezer. I'm taking something out of the freezer to put in the microwave. Then I go back to my room. I change my clothes. Then I gather up dirty clothes. I'm putting that in the washing machine. And then I make my way back to the kitchen to start dinner. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that is just, I said, when do you take time for yourself? And how how much better we can be and serve from a place of love, and being full of love, and allowing that love to spread over, and I say spread over and splash on everybody that you come in contact with. But the thing is that we're so empty as women. And I was one of those empty women. Because I was not feeling my well, and or filling my cup, and we say that all the time, but what does that mean? It means loving yourself first before you can love others.
Right.
And people's like, well, that sounds selfish. I said, no. I said, when you think of how you can take a moment for yourself, pour into yourself, fill yourself up, how much better it feels when you're serving others, because you're not serving from a place of depletion. You're
Mm-hmm.
serving from a full cup. Um, and sometimes and I had some beautiful examples, Heather. I had some amazing examples in my from my grandparents. And I say from my grandparents because my mom and probably my mother-in-law they were, I watched them. We were doing the same thing. We were trying to take care of everybody else. Um, but my grandparents, I feel like they had, to a certain degree, had passed that workaholic kind of stage where they're serving
Mm-hmm.
everybody, and realized that I have to start serving myself first. And my grandmother Avella, my mom's mom, I feel like I learned that lesson from her the most. I can remember going to visit with her, even on weekends that she had worked all week, but she always got in the tub at night and she would read her Bible. Um,
Mm.
and that was her way of just kind of relaxing and releasing. And when we came over on the weekends and maybe spend the weekend with her, she would get down on the floor and she would play with us. She loved the color. And so she would, I don't remember when these gigantic coloring books came out, but we had gotten this gigantic coloring book. And so everybody, it was like me and my sister and my grandmother, we could get around the coloring book and color a particular part of that page. And I realized, and I was like, that is self-care. Now we have the adult coloring books. And I was like,
Yeah.
my grandmother was doing that with crayons before this whole adult coloring thing came out. And yeah, and I wrote about it, a little bit about my journey into mindfulness, and the seven attitudes at that point before John Kabat-Zinn added the two more. But I could see each one of them practicing mindfulness in their different ways. Um, and it was beautiful. But
Mm.
I didn't recognize that probably until 20, I'd probably say maybe 2015, 2016. I didn't recognize the wealth of knowledge that I had in my grandparents, and really looking at them, and my great grandparents too, looking at them, and understanding the lessons that they were trying to teach me that I just wasn't paying any attention to.
Yeah. Or maybe you just didn't have like the awareness of it yet, to know what it was you were even witnessing then, you know?
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
you know, growing up, once you got to a certain age, I remember when we were small, my mom would always put us in the tub and give us a bath. And then
Hmm.
once you got old enough to, where she didn't have to help you, got in the shower. And so when I saw my grandma when I heard her taking a bath, I was like, I want to sit in that water. I said, I want to be in the shower. I want the water to just, shower over me and run out. And now I was like, oh, one of a bath is one of the most favorite things that I love to do. But
Yeah.
it's not just any bath. When you take a relaxing bath, it is for you to enjoy being in that moment. A mindful bath and a self care bath is not about getting in there and washing all the dirt off of the day off. Physically, from an energetic perspective, it is washing that energy off, but it's about really sitting there and enjoying the water on your skin. Um, Enjoying the music that you may have playing that can also calm you down.
Hmm.
Whether you like to put bath salts or whatever in your water, that's completely up to you. But a a real bath that is a self-care bath is about just rest and relaxation. And our bodies are made of water, but from an energy perspective, from a feminine perspective, water is our friend. And
Mm.
in a tub of water and just relax and be with the flow of it is amazing. And so that's one of the things I was like, if you can't do it every night, I said at least try to get in the tub, once a week, and that's my practice. I can't say that I get in the tub every night, but I do try to get in there at least two to three times a week.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see your whole energy shift as you're talking about the tub. So the tub that soak must be really important to your own self-care, self-love practice. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. That's beautiful. So Marci, tell us, how can people work with you? How can they get in touch with you?
So you can come and visit my website, marcellettamiles.com, um, and kind of peruse my site. But there is a button where you can have a quick session with me to see if we are a good fit. Everybody doesn't like my style, and that's okay. And everybody isn't ready to commit to honoring themselves. But I do try to help people determine whether or not this is something that's for you, because it's a journey with Marci, I would say, is not like any other journey.
I can attest to that. In the best ways. In the best ways.
And so I tell everybody, I was like, if you're not ready to do the work, then I'm not the one for you, because I will push you in a loving and compassionate way. um but yeah, I want to see people thrive and not just be sitting around surviving. I want
Mhm.
people to really move into who they are and experience their God-given gifts. And I tell everybody my higher power is God, but for
Mhm.
some people they can't say it, and so I honor whatever it is that they call, whether it's source, light, energy, whatever. But whoever your higher power created you to be is where I am trying to strengthen or help you strengthen that connection with that power.
I
Um,
love that.
so yeah, my website is a great place to start. Um, you can read some of my blogs on the website and kind of give you a feel of who I am and my work. Um, and I am going to be doing something over the next couple of weeks. So right now, if you're interested in understanding about how well you're loving yourself or not, I have a great quiz that you can reach on my homepage on my website. And so I would encourage everybody to go to my website, marcellettamiles.com, and take the quiz and see how well you're loving yourself. And you'll get some information back on things that you can do better or how you can work with me.
Awesome. And I'll put all of that in the show notes too, so that people can find you and follow you and all that good stuff. And one last question for you, which is, What is one thing we can do right now today to amplify our radiant spirits?
I would say one thing you can do today is take in some cleansing, refreshing breaths. And as you breathe in, envision yourself breathing in all that you need. And as you exhale, letting go of stuff that you do not need.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. That's beautiful. Well, Marcy, thank you so much for being on the show today. I loved chatting with you and hearing so much more about your story. I know we've known each other for a long time, but there's always things that we don't know about each other. So it's super helpful to know that. Thank you so much for listening today. You can find everything you need to know about Marcy in the show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of your journey and the work that you do. So this is great.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you for joining us on Your Radiant Spirit. If today's episode lit up your creativity or helped you connect with your inner energy, please leave us a review and share your thoughts. Your feedback helps us spread more light to others. To dive deeper, visit www.heathereck.com for courses, workshops, and custom spirit portraits. And for daily inspiration and behind-the-scenes magic, follow Heather on Instagram at @HeatherEckArtist. Your radiant spirit is calling. Take the next step on your journey. See you next time.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.